Browns OTA session number 2 is in the books. Media in the building. We have video from everybody in the building. And oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, the QB tracker has returned. We'll talk about it. Browns 3D and the OBR begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. Big thanks to everybody that joins the OBR every day, whether it is for the written content from the wonderful staff of writers here at the OBR or the nightly the OBR streaming network. Beginning at 6 o'clock, Browns 3D. Wednesday, you'll also have the OBR Weekly, Fred Greetham and Barry McBride to follow later. Make sure you are subscribed to OBR on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to the OBR, of course, over on Twitch. I tried to tell you 2 days ago it was going to be off the rails. Well, pretty much kind of what it was. First things first, not participating today. Joel Batonio not in attendance. Jack Conklin not in attendance. Strangely, Deontay Johnson not in attendance. And if you haven't heard, Myles Garrett was not in attendance. And Myles Garrett actually in Japan taking a little free time. Konnichiwa, Myles. We'll start with Myles Garrett. I don't care where Myles Garrett is right now. It does not bother me in one way, shape, or form. I do not care that after he was given his contract extension, owner Jimmy Aslam asked him and basically tried to bestow upon him that he needed more. It's really, really disingenuous to point your finger at somebody that has been a Hall of Famer for your organization pretty much since the second you drafted him in 2017 and have the audacity and the gall to ask him for more. I don't care that Myles isn't there. Voluntary. The word exists for a reason. There is a reason these activities are labeled as voluntary. Myles, when it matters, we'll see you then. When it is non-voluntary, when it is required, we will see you then. Of course, pretty much all the rage for today was going to be the quarterback position. Who went first? Doesn't matter. Who went second? Doesn't matter. Who went third? Doesn't matter. Who went fourth? Doesn't matter. Nobody is winning the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns on May 28th. Nobody is losing the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns on May 28th. Judging by everything that was seen and everything who was there, the workload was not 25, 25, 25, 25. And Kevin Stefanski told us he did not think that was really going to be feasible to do on a day in, day out basis. It's just the way it goes. It does appear that Shedeur Sanders maybe got the least amount of work today. And if you're just doing this, and again, this goes back to when they handed out the jersey numbers, and I was aggravated by it. Whoever had been here the longest is kind of the way maybe it appeared that it went. Okay, so Shedeur, if he was the last quarterback acquired, got the least amount of work. That's fine. If he keeps playing like he did today, by all means, that work will certainly increase. So Pickett got his work in. I don't know if it was the first rep or the second rep. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, all right, had a nice pass rep right off the bat. That basically would have been a would-be sack. You don't touch the quarterback, please, this time of year. Ever don't touch the quarterback in practice, but don't touch the quarterback this time of year. Jerry Jeudy was in his sync pretty much with every quarterback that was out there. It's almost to the point where it almost seems unfair to have Jerry Jeudy out there right now. Jerry Jeudy seems to be performing at a level that is just not on par with anybody else out there right now. Coming off a breakthrough season last year, Jerry Jeudy, has to have a confidence level within him that is extremely high right now. And it's certainly translated in anything you saw today. Jerry Jeudy was wide open. He caught everything that was thrown to him. He was separating. He was running away from would-be defenders. For a move that was made, a year and a couple of months back, it's really looking more and more like it's going to pay some long-term dividends for the Cleveland Browns. The Amari Cooper move was a really good move at the time, and it parlayed into 2 years of success. But essentially, you made the same move to acquire Jerry Jeudy, a player that was significantly younger than Amari Cooper, a player that you were able to give the contract that you wanted to give, which is exactly what Cleveland did. Jerry Jeudy looking to be nothing but all aces right now for the Cleveland Browns. Pickett had his moments out there today, and all the quarterbacks did. He spoke afterwards. Now, I really think the media is still infatuated with Joe Flacco. Now, it was interesting, and I think Kenny Pickett, and we'll start. Obviously, I had my comments on Flacco, but I think Kenny Pickett, and this is kind of what good teammates do, right? Kenny Pickett, in reading the room and knowing you had a bunch of media basically thirsty to pick up anything that they could maybe turn into him versus him, the veterans versus the kids, or the kids versus the veterans, right? Kenny Pickett said, look, we understand there's a competition going on here, but the amount of time we're all going to spend in quarterback meetings, in the quarterback room, watching film, eventually a chemistry is developed and everybody kind of works with everybody else. Nobody sits there and says, oh, you know what? I saw something on that film that I don't think anybody else saw. Let me just slide it down in my super secret notebook, and I'm not sharing it with the rest of the class. It's just not the way it goes. Yes, there is a competition here. And the saddest part is this competition, there's a chance maybe everybody wins. Well, at least 3, right? You don't think all 4 of these guys are going to end up, ending up on the opening day roster for the Cleveland Browns. But there's a chance, most likely, that all of them are going to play. They're all going to see the field. And for Pickett, Sanders, Gabriel, for any of the 3, this is not going to be the end of the line. Rookies, Gabriel and Sanders. Kenny Pickett only in his 4th year. Yes, some of these guys may end up on, other NFL rosters and may end up on other NFL rosters sooner rather than later. But everybody's just trying to improve, and everybody's just trying to find wherever that fit is, wherever that perfect fit is. And maybe their NFL path goes the way of a Sam Darnold, where it's bounced around, bounced around, bounced around. And then all of a sudden, here you are. You didn't even see it coming. You're the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. You have a phenomenal regular season. You end up signing a monster offseason deal with the Seattle Seahawks. There's a million ways it can work now for NFL quarterbacks. And I think that is one of the biggest differences in the NFL today, as far as the quarterback position, than it may have been back in the day. Like back in the day, you could flame out, but nobody else would ever give you the opportunity to actually play. That's it, man. You're a backup. You're part of a quarterback room. You're never going to see the light of day again. Now, and maybe it's because you flame out quicker than usual in the NFL these days, you have that opportunity. After a year or so, or 2 years or so, you matured, you've gotten better, you're more studious, in the film room, you found an offense that fits you better. And all of a sudden, once again, maybe now you do have a legit opportunity in the league once again. So Kenny Pickett, I thought that was a great job on his part, basically trying to come on in and just flame out any potential, igniters that were there, trying to start a little fire. That was a great job, in my opinion, by Kenny Pickett. Joe, and look, there's something to be said when you've been in the league as long as Joe Flacco has. There's something to be said when you're 40 years old. You understand the way the league works. You've been to the apex, the mountaintop in the NFL, winning a Super Bowl, understanding how the league works, anything, and of course, multiple stops for Joe Flacco when he originally started in Baltimore. But Joe being there and just saying, I think the guys kind of like me. Maybe it's because I have this father effect. Maybe it's because I am as old as some of their fathers. This goofy little, thing that, you probably see in any one of your neighbors in the neighborhood where you live in. But man, it gets eaten up and they absolutely love it. Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel, we'll get a little bit more in depth on them. And it's going to be a really interesting way this all breaks out. And look, it's going to be over the next 3 months, the way this all works out. So, you want to give out, a round one of, 93 on a scorecard, knock yourself out. Okay. Because it's not going to matter now. It's certainly going to matter in July, and it most certainly will matter in August. Like we said, you did have Joe Bitonio out today. You did have Jack Conklin out today. DeJuan Jones lined up as your left tackle. Cornelius Lucas lined up as your right tackle. So your tackles today were 6'9", and I don't know what the number is for DeJuan Jones. We'll get back there in a second. Cornelius Lucas on the right side, 6'8", 315, 320 pounds. Let them off the bus first. Let those two off the bus first. But looking at DeJuan Jones out there, you saw, look, DeJuan Jones, and the OBR reported it a couple of months ago. I don't know how long ago exactly, but the OBR reported that, DeJuan Jones had been strictly and very adamant about keeping his weight in check this offseason, understanding what, basically held him back last offseason, led to some early season injuries for him last year. Then all of a sudden, here he was in season trying to lose weight because, the rumors were he had ballooned to over 400 pounds. That is not what you saw from DeJuan Jones today. DeJuan Jones, to his credit, looks like he has put in, a serious effort, and whether it's, hiring someone to help him with his meals, working with an app, with a computer, whatever, to count calories, count what he's eating, track what he's eating. It's difficult when you're a big guy. It is. I know nothing about it, but I have friends who are bigger guys. It's not always that easy. It's not. But to his credit, DeJuan Jones out there looked pretty good today. And most importantly, DeJuan Jones looked slim today. Very, very important. Now, I know there's a lot of reaction to the Dillon Gabriel batted down pass. Well, a couple things with that. Look, when you're a quarterback who is under 6 feet tall, sometimes that is going to be an issue. There is no question about it. Also, Mason Graham basically just dog walked Luke Whippler into Dillon Gabriel's lap. The target that Dillon Gabriel wanted to throw to just happened to be over the middle between the hash marks. Yes, Mason Graham didn't necessarily jump. Yes, the ball was batted. Yes, the ball, I don't know who it was, but the ball was intercepted. Da, 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 da. It's not always a height thing. It's not. Okay. Number one, good play by Mason Graham. That's the reason you drafted him at the number 5th overall selection. Is it something that Dillon Gabriel's going to have to constantly be cognizant of? Probably. Joe Flacco can get away with a lot of things at 6'6". Doesn't mean that Joe Flacco's perfect. Doesn't mean that Joe Flacco does not make mistakes. Does not mean that Joe Flacco doesn't commit turnovers. But for Dillon Gabriel, it is just yet another thing you're just going to have to be cognizant of is, throwing lanes. Are they open? Because it didn't matter that Mason Graham was 6'2". It wouldn't matter to Mason Graham was 6'5". If he jumped, if he didn't jump, the offensive lineman let him get his arms up, and there you go. The ball was batted down. Most overall, though, I think Mason Graham, I do believe that Dillon Gabriel had himself, and I think all the quarterbacks for the most part, had themselves a. Now, Gabriel with Kenny Pickett basically received the larger amount, it appears, in your 7-on-7s, in your 11-on-11s. And, that's a number that certainly can change, and with media not being there tomorrow, we don't have any idea if it's going to be, okay, well, tomorrow it'll be a heavier workload for Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders, maybe a little bit less for Kenny Pickett or Dillon Gabriel. And again, we've been saying this entire time, Joe Flacco doesn't need to come in here and have a heavy workload. That is one of the many advantages of being in the NFL as long as Joe has been. Also, many advantages of being 40 years old. Joe does not need a lot to get going. Joe does not need a lot to get hot. He is a big, tall guy with a rocket of an arm. Does not need, a certain amount of reps. Does not need extra reps, nor should he at this point in his career. And the other thing is, why would you waste those reps in May if you truly think you might need them in September, October, November, December, January, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Sanders did get the lightest amount of work, and of footage that was available, it seemed that, the Browns closed it kind of with like a walk through red zone 7-on-7 period. And, whatever you want to say about Shedeur Sanders, and, look, there were criticisms. I had mine. There were plenty. Some of them were unjustified. The young man can throw a football, and he can throw the football accurately. And, it seemed the Browns were throwing, working a lot of the back of the end zone today and a lot of things that were, available to be seen. And, look, Shedeur has a way to elevate the ball over the defender, but just enough that it is not elevating the ball over his receiver behind. Hit several guys in the back of the end zone. Trey McKitty, a well-traveled tight end, originally out of Florida State University, one of Pete Smith's favorite guys. He was highly involved today working the back of the end zone. Joe Flacco had another touchdown pass to the back of the end zone to Harold Fannin Jr. And look, David Njoku, by the way, yes, another guy that was not in attendance today. But with Fannin, again, this is what I continue to tell everybody. He just kind of has this knack, kind of has this feel. And, I'm not comparing him to Cooper Kupp, but the comparison is for guys who don't have these elite athletic measurables and forms of testing, the wow 40, the OMG, vertical jump, the eye-popping broad jump. Harold Fannin just has a really, really intelligent grasp of finding the open spot. His best form of athleticism is his intelligence. And it really, really works for Fannin. He knows where to settle down. He knows quickly to get his body around and get eyes and hands on the ball. This is a pick that certainly can pay dividends for Cleveland. Whether or not they are immediate dividends, I'm not sure. And that's certainly going to be on Fannin. That's certainly going to be how the Browns choose to go. That's certainly going to depend on guys like Deontay Johnson. Can they be legit contributors or not? There's a lot of factors into this. But the Browns found them something in Harold Fannin. And what he may lack in measurables, he does not lack an ability to actually play the game. You had Denzel Ward out there today, had a big pass breakup. Again, if Denzel Ward was not there today, nobody would care. But it's everybody's personal choice whether or not they choose to be there. Okay? That is what voluntary means. That is what voluntary is all about. We are not going to get on anybody for not being out there, and we're not certainly going to throw any extra kudos on anybody who decided to be there. If your job said you get paid today regardless, but you don't have to come in if you don't want to, how many of you were going? And now be honest. Come on, guys. You wouldn't. Many of us wouldn't. Because why? We work our butts off every day. If I have the opportunity to take a little time for myself and it doesn't affect me monetarily, guess what? I am going to do just that. In these type of workouts, you certainly don't get a read on anything run-wise. And hearing certain media members, get aggravated that they're working on some run things. First things first, the running game is a lot more difficult to put together than the passing game. The run game is a lot more difficult to replicate if just a couple of guys working out than the passing game. I mean, you guys just got to understand ball a little bit better. You did see, obviously, Sampson. You did see Judkins. And look, it seems like the focus is big on these guys. And, rightfully so, certainly. I've said a million times, I don't think Jerome Ford's just going to stand here and just give away touches, give away reps at the running back spot. But you can see that, the Browns have a high level of confidence and are hoping for immediate returns from Quinshon Judkins and Dillon Sampson. Different backs, certainly, but the investment in them was high, and the Browns' belief the return on those investments should be high as well. So again, you can't really get a read on the running game in these types of things. And, the fact that they have these guys out there running patterns, getting in the flat, running the, quick stop routes, where they would be the last resort for the quarterback to get the ball to, just good stuff, for early in the OTA process. Carson Schlesinger, of course, on the field. All the eyes in the world are going to be on Carson Schlesinger. Not only was he kind of the surprise pick for the Cleveland Browns, he, of course, is coming in and, going to have to be a huge reason that the Cleveland Browns can find a way to hopefully cover up from the loss of number 6, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who, as we all know, will not be a part of the Cleveland Browns in 2025. So certainly some things that I had some questions that I talked about the last couple episodes earlier this week in regards to things we were hoping to see and things that we were hoping that we heard were true. Certainly one, Dewan Jones, the effort, the impulse and importance, for him to work on, navigating, that number, which is his weight, which is really the only thing that can hold a player like Dewan Jones back. Um, the opportunity is there. The Browns are more than okay with saying that Dewan Jones is their left tackle at minimum 2025. If he could be their left tackle next year as well, I think that would be more than fine with them. Browns would have no problem with a left tackle being on the books for the third year and the fourth year of a fourth round pick salary. It allows them to get their finances. And again, finances are not an issue, but if they are choosing to get their finances to a lower, more workable number, a guy like Dewan Jones certainly gives them that opportunity. They've already made and had that opportunity come to them via the running back room with Jerome Ford, and who is due for more money. And the Browns found a way to rework that money with Jerome Ford. And then, of course, with the draft selections of Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson. All of a sudden, that room is cheaper than it has been in a long, long time due to the great play and just excellent overall leadership and just human being and being a great teammate and being a great citizen that Nick Chubb was. Quarterback room. Yes, there's a lot of money, and it has nothing to do with anybody that's actually going to be on the 53-man roster. These guys are going to continue to battle, and it is going to be one day at a time, like I said, over the next 3 months. Yes, Joe Flacco had a nice day. Kenny Pickett was kind of okay. Shedeur Sanders, in a limited amount of reps, had a nice day. Dillon Gabriel did have, the batted ball that turned into an interception. But just as we say all these things, tomorrow it could be so and so had a good day, so and so didn't have the best day. It is going to be a 3-month process. So there's no reason to stand here and plant a flag now in any way whatsoever. The more meaningful thing, of course, is going to be training camp itself. It is going to be joint practices. It is going to be preseason games. A long, long way to go. That doesn't mean we can't banter about this all every day like we do. We have a lot of fun with it, and we will continue to do that. But it is going to be a marathon. It is most certainly not going to be a sprint. And, I do have my issues with, what's being thrown at Myles Garrett when you have Njoku, when you have Batonio, when you have Conklin and others who were not in attendance today. And I'll be honest, the oddest one of them all for me would be Deontay Johnson. Here it is, here's a team that, actually is reaching out and trying to help you get yourself back on the right track, giving you the opportunity to do just that. Now, maybe there was something obviously that Deontay could not turn away from. But a guy like Deontay Johnson, A, the Browns could use a talent like that. B, a guy like Deontay Johnson doesn't have a lot of opportunities left in this league. That's what happens when you basically act and be the person that Deontay Johnson has been for the last season and a half within this league. So here is a team trying to give you an opportunity with open arms. Let's take advantage of it. And God knows the Browns could certainly use the wide receiver help. You saw a couple of flashes from Jamari Thrash today. Cedric Tillman with a nice toe tap. I don't know if he was in or not, right by the pylon. And judging by the stupid tracker, apparently he wasn't, because the quarterback who threw the ball did not get credit for a touchdown pass. So therefore, I guess they did not think that Cedric Tillman was in the end zone at all anyway. But the Browns need help here. And, Deontay Johnson, this is a prime opportunity. It's a prime opportunity to kickstart your career again. And Deontay's not old as far as the NFL is concerned. I still see people out there trying to recreate Amari Cooper, to the Browns. And again, it was great once. Why? It wasn't great last year. And it's not like he went to Buffalo and, looked like stinking Megatron. You just got to learn to let some things go. Okay. Not everything has to be a marriage. Sometimes just a nice little relationship, a little May to September fling. Nothing wrong with it. It's a good thing. You have fond memories of it. When you try to make it more than that is when all of a sudden you realize, well, yeah, now that real life was involved and, jobs and pressure and all this other stuff, neither one really was compatible with the other one to begin with anyway. But this team, and it's good. And I think the thing that really you come away with is just feel a lot of positivity from everybody there, player wise. You certainly feel a lot of positivity from the quarterback room and just the overall general buzz. And what's the common denominator? What's not here that has been here in years past, which was just an absolute anchor around this roster, around this coaching staff, around this organization as a whole. He is not a part of anything right now, nor will he ever be a part of everything again. The one giant, huge move this franchise tried to make that thought was going to separate them from the pack, and it turned out to be an absolute Titanic like miss. But he's not around. And I'd rather listen to Kenny Pickett talk. I'd rather listen to Joe Flacco talk. I'd rather listen to Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel. And hell, I'd rather listen to the 85th, 86th, 87th, 88th, 89th, 90th guy on this roster right now. It didn't work. I don't care what he's doing with himself right now. I don't ever want to see him in any aspect around this franchise again. And yes, we may go through the same process again next year because it looks like the earliest his can is out of here is June 1st of 2027. So he will be the Casper the Ghost in and around the Cleveland Browns, but hopefully to never, ever be seen or heard from again, regardless of which media members wants to continue to bring this stuff going. Now, again, the talk of the quarterback competition. Look, I'm not saying it's 25% each, and each one of these guys has got a 25% chance. But if you think Shedeur Sanders doesn't have a chance and you think Kenny Pickett is the odds-on favorite, you're nuts right now. There is no clear-cut favorite. There is no clear-cut loser. Way too early in the ballgame. And, for those who want it to be Shedeur Sanders, don't push it. There's no reason to push it. This is something where you want to hopefully, gradually, and slowly build up steam. Put together a good OTA session. Put together a good mini camp session. There's one more OTA session to close it out. And I think that ends right around, I'm going to say June 22nd or so. Hopefully he does strong then. Then all of a sudden, everybody assembles, training camp in July. And then you know what? Maybe he's not as far off from the top as it would appear he was, when he first got drafted. And I got news for you. If we're just talking straight ability and straight talking playing the position, I don't know that there's a big grasp or a big gap within these four guys as it is. Joe hasn't played a ton lately. You put together what he did for the Browns in 23 and what he did last year for the Colts in 24. It's maybe a season's worth of work. Pickett really hasn't played meaningful ball since early in 2023. Meanwhile, Gabriel and Sanders were out there each and every week last fall, tearing it up for Oregon, for Colorado. Don't believe that these rookies don't have a shot. And even if it isn't week one to have a shot, these boys have a shot, and they have a legit shot at serious playing time. I've said it before. I will continue to say it. The majority of the games started at the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns in 2025 will be by Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel. I guarantee you that. So let's just watch and let the process roll out. But these boys are going to get closer to the top here quicker than later. I am Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you for all the love you give us here at the OBR, whether it's joining every morning, firing up, opening up all the links, reading the great content from our fantastic group of writers, or rolling on over to the OBR streaming network every night at 6 o'clock, beginning with Browns 3D at 6 o'clock, tonight being Wednesday. Fred Greetham, Barry McBride, OBR Weekly. Make sure you tune in. Fred was there today. I'm going to be honest. Fred had some of the best video footage of anybody that was in the building today. So I'm sure Fred is going to have a ton of thoughts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we will talk to y'all tomorrow.